This morning, after I went to the gym, it was about 9 o'clock, and I was walking through Walmart looking at all the employees and looking at the customers. And I had this thought, right? And it's been brewing inside of my head all day. What do poor people do when they can't afford fun? Like after work during the week and on weekends, what are poor people doing? Because I don't really talk to anyone. So I just imagine that ordinary people with friends and family and things to do, a social life, do things on the weekend that other people don't do. But the reality is that poor people are either working or they're recovering. And I was I was standing on top of the treadmill today, and I was watching a guy that looked like he had no clue being at the gym. He was working out in real life Call of Duty. Like he was crab walking, he was jumping, he was sliding on his knees. It truly looked like he was auditioning to be in a Call of Duty game. And I just kept scratching my head, and then he'd run over to the side of the gym and he'd start bending this metal rod back and forth. Like it was a sight to see. And the whole time I was watching the Call of Duty gym workout, there was a girl, a blonde girl, that out of the 20 treadmills that were in front of me, she decided to get on the one right in front of me in her, in her yoga pants, and I just had to watch the thing shake for the next half an hour. It was kind of hypnotic. But people in a gym have no idea what they're doing. The average Johnny Sixpack or Susie Rottencrotch just comes to the gym because that's what you're supposed to do, right? You can look at them and there's not a bit of muscle anywhere on their body. And investing time in learning how to do something correctly in the gym isn't something they're willing to do. Like most people can't drive, they can't fight, they can't write. I mean, living sometimes for the proletariat just seems like it's an exercise in futility. Just existence for the sake of existing because your pearl parents decided to conceive you behind a Taco Bell and then never saw each other again. It was a no names, no phone numbers, just a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am kind of deal. That's where I came from. I'm not going to sugarcoat where I came from. My parents had no business creating me, so I'd have to spend the rest of my life in the wage cage for no good reason other than lust. I mean, that's really what it comes down to is the proletariat breeds because it's a form of recreation. But with that said, let's get into today's talking points because that's why you're all here, right? The hidden cost of leisure, exhaustion and burnout, escapism through technology, side hustles, and survival mode. We all know those very well. We know what the side hustle means. We're not stupid. We're not, at least, I hope not anymore. If you've watched this channel for 100 episodes, I hope you've come to realize that side hustles just mean that the corporation doesn't pay you enough in a 40-hour work week and you got to go out and make more money because they're not interested in keeping you well. And I put that in air quotes. Physical and social toll. This one will bring memories of where Mello is probably right now. So let's get right into this video. Let's start with talking point number one. Many people living paycheck to paycheck can't afford typical recreational activities. We can't afford to go out to dinner. I mean, I just drove past a restaurant. I didn't even know it had been closed because going out to eat has become a thing not of the lower class, not of the middle class, but of the higher middle class. Like Mello and I were sitting in a restaurant in Red Robin yesterday eating, and I looked at the bill and I'm like, how does any normal person afford to go out to eat? And I mean, we didn't buy anything extravagant. She had a hamburger, I had chicken, and that was it. And when I looked at the bill, my eyes popped out of my head. I just couldn't believe it. So even small expenses add up, like going to the movies, paying for gas to go outdoors, to go to the lake or to go to the river. Pearls don't have that extra money. So they're stuck living paycheck to paycheck with little to no recreational activities. They've got to figure out how to exist because we're not living. The proletariat isn't living right now. We stopped living 20 years ago. We exist and we've been existing like animals for a long time. And again, we normalize this behavior by telling us ourselves that things are going to get better. This is a bad year, or I'm going through a rough patch, but the reality is I've lived this way my entire life. That recreational activities aren't for poor people. Having fun isn't for poor people. Having fun is for the people who have their McMansion, who are driving their fancy car and banging the crap out of their fancy Susie Rotten crotch that's more plastic than human. But with that said, let's transition to talking point number two. Physically demanding or mentally draining jobs. Many workers are too exhausted to enjoy their free time. This is what I feel from Mello every day when she gets home. Like her job is physically exhausting. She's covered in bruises. She's losing a lot of weight, and you just see the toll that working in a warehouse style job takes out on you. There's a reason why Jeff Bezos refers to you as an industrial athlete. You're talking about people who are walking 10 plus miles a day in their job with 15,000 steps. And she actually monitors it on her wrist all day long as the physical exertion. I mean, it is demanding working in these jobs because you're a human machine. You're like a little forklift. You lift up the merchandise, you put it on the shelf, you lift it up, you do it a million more times until you come home and your brain is just absolute garbage. And the mentally draining part of it, like my job, is mentally draining. I've worked 7 days in a row. In fact, I just got back from the office right now because I had to go test a bunch of equipment, look at a bunch of stuff, figure out some things, load up my car, and I'm back home. And that means that I started working at 9 and I just got home at 4. And somehow you just have to not let it bother you because as a content creator myself, part of my day is to look at the world around me and figure out what's broken in it. And I can't find anything that's right in it. I keep using this phrase that we're not well, we're not good, and no one that doesn't have money right now is okay. I'm gonna say this 1,000 times on this channel. The proletariat is not okay. I'm not okay. Mello's not okay. Anyone that's not living comfortably and that can work just a 40-hour or less, preferably a lot less. Remember, I'm an advocate of the 1 hour, 1 day work week, which a lot of you laugh, but as stupid as that sound, isn't that the ideal place we'd like to be? That we just work 1 hour, 1 day a week, and we're completely and totally financially taken care of. We'll retire at age 50 and we can avoid the glue farm. But the reality is that's wishful thinking, millennial Stame. And I'm like, you know what? We could make it happen. We're the 99%. We could turn things around in 1 day. All we have to do is stop going. But guess what? When we stop going, we feel those large, cold hands around our waist, and suddenly Fleece is around us, and we can smell that Fleece has been drinking. He's probably put something in his pipe, and he's full of lust. And you're the target. Talking point number three. When poor people come home, they access the escape, as I do. I come home and I do the same thing every night when I get home from work. I create content for YouTube, and then Mr. Pearlbeer's waiting for me 10 feet away, waiting for me to go and shove all of the pearl beer that I can possibly get into my body until my brain explodes and my eyes come popping out of my head, because that's the only way that I can cope with this. Endlessly scrolling through social media, binge watching Netflix, or the worst one, being taken yet again by playing free to play games and doing microtransactions. Remember, people, nothing in this world is free. Even your free to play games aren't free. They're watching you, they're collecting data, they're doing everything they can. Every time someone offers you something with this hand, secretly with the other hand, uh-oh. Yeah, you don't know what that other hand's doing, but it's not doing anything good for you. I'll tell you that much. So the next time you click on something on an ad on Instagram or you click on anything on the internet, remember there are consequences for the things that you touch on the internet. So stop touching things on the internet, proletariat, because it's going to give you viruses, trojans, or worst of all, it's going to take the couple bucks you have out of your wallet straight out, and you're going to wonder what happened. Why am I feeling a little light in the wallet these days? Free to play games. Talking point number 4. The side hustle and being constantly in survival mode. We all know what it feels like. Free time becomes more work time. You think I make these YouTube videos because I'm happy to do it? No. This is work. I have to choose every morning when I wake up whether or not I'm going to go from Evil Corp to Walmart or Kroger's because I need to work at least an additional 4+ hours every single day of the week. I have to put in at least 4 extra hours 7 days a week, making my work week around 80 hours per week. Am I enjoying my life? No. When your free time becomes more work time, all you're doing is making more wealth for the people that won't pay you enough money to survive off a 40-hour work week. Content creation is hard. Creativity is extremely difficult after the mentally draining, repetitive nature of mediocre jobs. You come home and you're just absolutely beat. That's why sometimes when I would come home with my previous channel and I'd say, I really, really don't want to do this, but guess what? Do I really have a choice? No. We have to find another way of making money. Free time isn't free for the proletariat. We constantly figure out what we're going to do. If you're a person who can't create content because you're not creative, you're not a well-spoken person, you're not an educated person, it is hard to create content unless you're creating brain rot on the internet. And please, don't create brain rot. We already have plenty of it. It's called Mr. Beast. So, with that said, let's transition to our final talking point. Inability to participate in fun or leisure activities can lead to feelings of isolation and loneliness. I am one of the most lonely people that you will probably never meet in your life. I haven't spoken to a single person this weekend other than meeting my boss in a parking lot and him giving me the disapproving look like, why aren't you working right now? You could be working right now. You could be working for free right now, Millennial Sting. Why aren't you working? And the isolation that you feel from this world when you're not able to do anything fun. My trying to go on vacation is futile. My job will never allow me to have any sort of leisure. My job is just, there's no one else to do it. At least when my boss's boss leaves, the rest of us pick up the slack. When you have people just doing one job at a corporation, it makes it almost impossible to function when that person isn't there. There's no one else. And you just kind of like, I don't want to be that person. I just want to be a normal worker. But normal workers come with normal salaries. So go figure. So you grow more and more isolated every day. I've been getting more and more isolated for the past 20 years. I don't talk to anyone. I don't see anyone. And the only things I have to talk about on the internet, on YouTube, is my feeling towards life and the fact that we don't matter. You don't matter in the grand scheme of things. And YouTube kept recommending me videos today as to the 5 reasons why you're not meeting women. Where am I going to meet women? All the women at the gym have no interest in a man that looks like me. I just passed a couple of college hussies at the Kroger's when I was getting my Pearl beer, and both of them looked like they were getting ready to have a damn good time. They were buying two 24 packs and a giant bottle of liquor. Whatever those girls plan on doing tonight, it's more fun than I've had in my entire life. Because fun doesn't really exist in my life. I don't drink pearl beer to have fun. In fact, today, when I was thinking of ideas of why I wanted to make this particular video, I wanted to know what poor people were doing right now. As poor people, what we're doing is we're working. We're not participating in fun. We work, we're isolated, we're depressed, we're anxious, we're panicky, and we turn to substances because our lives don't matter. We don't get paid enough to matter. Our jobs treat us like we don't matter. Other people treat us like we don't matter. I think that's the hardest thing for me to accept in my extreme isolation is that you don't matter. When people look at you, like yesterday when I was sitting in the restaurant eating with Mello, because that's pretty much just what we do when we talk about the channel. I mean, she's my lead moderator. She can access anything on the channel that she wants. But I had a woman who was sitting at the bar waiting, and she just looked over me at me and smiled, and I thought, she's over the hill. She used to be attractive. And I just looked at her like, don't smile at me. My face, the pattern across my face was like, no, don't smile in my direction. I don't want to participate in whatever you're thinking, because if you've convinced yourself that you want to smile at strangers, there's something wrong with you. Most of us are indifferent towards other people. We're indifferent towards our own relatives. We're indifferent to our significant other. If you happen to have one, we have grown to the point where a significant other isn't so much significant as necessary in order to survive. We are a dual income society, and for those of us too damn ugly to attract another financial contributor into our life, or like myself, your standards are too high. Remember, a beer budget and champagne taste. That's what most proletariat men are. But women have come to realize that, hey, if you're not making at least, let's put it right around $650,000 is what the tag that I've seen. If you're not that guy making that kind of money, they're not interested. They're going to wait for him. And they're going to wait until they're 40 and realize, oh my God, I waited too long. I'm not married. The only thing I have are my cats, and my looks are long gone. But like most proletariat men, at least as long as we keep contributing financially to Susie Rottencrotch's GoFundMe for the pink taco, you'll keep rocking out with your thing out. But for the most part, men who don't make that kind of money, you're isolated, you're lonely, and you're shaking hands with the governor way more than you should. In fact, I often wonder, sometimes I don't touch the damn thing. Sometimes I just look at it and it looks depressing sitting there. Like, why are you so small? Why do you get no love? And it's just like, do I really want to touch that thing, or do I just want to leave it alone? And other days you're just like, eh. It's the only joy that I get in life is to occasionally beat the governor, and that's it. But for the most part, it doesn't feel right. God, no pun intended. It's just a form of 15 seconds of entertainment. And then you're done, and then you go back to like, well, what am I going to do now? I ask myself that question constantly. What am I going to do now? And then I look up at the ceiling, and then I look across at the screen, and then I think to myself, Jesus, this is it, isn't it? This is as good as it gets for the poor proletariat man. You're just sitting in a tiny room that feels a lot more isolating than anything else. Because what else is there to do? When you walk through a Kroger's and you look at the workers, then you look at like the small families that are dirt poor. Like, I look in shopping carts all the time to see what's in there. Like yesterday I was walking through the store and I looked at a middle-aged woman that didn't seem to have any children, but her whole shopping cart was full of very sugary breakfast cereal. And I thought, well, what can I say to that? When I look in your shopping cart and it's just full of food that is not good for you, I think, well, at least food is an escape for some people. In fact, the school teacher that I talk to all the time, who's extremely overweight, tells me all the time, it's like, Millennial Steam, the reason I look like this is because I love food. And I'm like, well, at least you can afford the food that you love. Many people who are poor don't get to eat things that they like. In fact, they get to eat a lot of things they don't like. But with that said, let's get into toxic positivity before we get really depressed here. So, this is the question I started out the video with, and this is the question I'm going to end the video with. In toxic positivity, are you too poor to live? I ask myself this question all the time. Is the proletariat too poor to live, or is the necessity to have the proletariat a necessary evil for rich people in order to be able to exploit them to the nth degree? And then I think about the businesses that are directly near my house: the pawn shop across the street, the payday loan place across the street, and the drive-through liquor store that's across the street. In fact, the drive-through liquor store is in the same parking lot as the gym that I go to every day. That's how close these places are. And these are places that directly profit from poor people. When poor people need to pay the rent, their jewelry starts to go. Why they bought it in the first place, I never understand. But as with electronics, when I've gotten behind, really behind on paying the rent, first thing that has to be sold is my iPad. And then any other electronics that I'm not currently using, and soon you have nothing. And then you build it back up, and then it goes away. You build it back up, and then there's always a reason why you're going to need something in an emergency. And since you don't have really another way of making money, you have to sell your stuff. I mean, I've sold thousands of dollars worth of my stuff at next to nothing to the pawn shop, because the pawn shop looks at you and it's like you're the target. They're always going to have pawn shops because there's always going to be poor people. In fact, someone put that into the comments this morning, that we are never going to get rid of poor people in the world. They are always going to exist. They're like the flies, right? No matter how much we all hate flies, they're always hovering around a perfect pile of warm you know what. And guess what? Guess what else is warm? The proletariat. And that's why the proletariat resembles that stuff, and why we will never be able to get rid of them. They will not stop getting it on like bunny rabbits. And then Susie Rottencrotch becomes a single mom. Thank God Susie Rottencrotch has realized that being a single mom sucks. But before, there's a certain time where being a single mom and trying to scrape by, like, again, my mom, there's always a Johnny six pack around my mom. It seems like anytime my mom was out and about, there was some spidey sense that would tingle in a proletariat man that would run over, mate, and then disappear into the darkness. Because I do have a lot of half brothers and sisters, and they came from somewhere. The dirty deed has to be done. Anyhow, I'm not doing the dirty deed. I hope you're not doing the dirty deed. And if you are doing the dirty deed, remember,